Okay, last video, last multiplying special case, and that is when your polynomial or binomial, sorry, has the same two numbers in its terms. We also call them perfect square. Notice the to the 2 power. So perfect square binomials, or we would call this the difference of two squares. And when you're taking a look at each of these binomials, they have a pretty obvious special case. You can see that you have something squared, which we haven't had before, or you have the same two terms that are multiplied together, and one has a plus sign in the middle and one has a minus sign in the middle. Now, the cool thing about these special cases is when you multiply those terms, the same things happen each time, no matter what the numbers are. So we do them here with letters so you can kind of see what's happening. But what happens here is when you have something squared, you're going to have a squared plus 2 times both of those terms plus b squared. If you have a minus sign, it's the first thing squared minus 2 times those things and then plus b squared. And then down here, when you have one of each sign, those middle terms are going to cancel out, and you'll just have the first term squared minus the last term squared. It's important to note that you are never, ever, ever going to have something like this, where you have two terms, whether it's plus or minus, and you simply do this. That is not ever going to happen. So a squared plus b squared is not ever going to be an answer. You're either going to get a middle term, like the 2ab or the minus 2ab, or you're going to have a squared minus b squared. Okay, so please don't ever just distribute that squared term to both terms. Okay. Now, this is really helpful when we're multiplying, because if you can see those patterns, then you will very quickly be able to recognize and put up your answers for each of those things. Okay, so if we keep those kind of up here while I do these last two, or the first couple of problems, you'll see that this makes our life very easy. In this first example, n minus 7 squared, we have an n term and a negative 7 term. So imagine that's our a and our b. If I had a minus b squared, then I'm going to use this pattern up here, a squared minus 2ab minus b squared, to help me multiply this. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my a and square it. Then I'm going to do minus 2 times my a term times my b term, and then I'm going to take my b term squared. So that makes this very easy. N squared minus 14n plus 49 as my answer. So you can see you can multiply each of those things in the pattern very quickly. Let's try this one over here. So if I do 2x plus 9 squared, remember 2x is my a term, 9 is my b term. So we're on this first pattern up here, a plus b squared. So I'm going to do a squared, so 2x squared, and then plus 2 times a, which would be our 2x term, times our b term, which is 9, plus our b term squared. So 2x squared is 4x squared. 2x times 2x is 4, times 9 is 36x, and then 9 squared is 81. So if you know those patterns, you don't have to worry so much about being able to multiply them. You can just plug in your a and b values into the pattern. Now let's take a look at this very last one, the x plus 9, x minus 9. So if I go through and I notice this pattern, a is x and b is 9 for both of these. Since I have one plus and one minus, that means I'm going to have my first term squared minus my second term squared. So this is going to be x squared minus 9 squared. That makes x squared minus 81 as our answer there. Okay. So you can go through and do these other three problems real quick. Oh, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 problems. And I will put up the answers here in a second. So go ahead and pause, do your problems, and then you can check your answers with mine. So here are my answers. You can see I did 2 more of those first 2 patterns where you have the first term squared. This middle term came from doing 2 times x times 8. That's how I got 16. And then 8 squared. Down here, 2m squared. 2 times 2m times 3 made 12m. And then 3 times 3 made 9. These last 3 were that last pattern, the a minus, or a plus b, a minus b. So remember, we always took our first term squared, so 6 squared is 36, M squared squared is m to the fourth. 3c squared, that's 9c squared. 4 squared is 16. X cubed squared is x to the sixth. 8 squared is 64. So I hope that kind of answers all your questions on special cases. Remember, we're going to be practicing all of these multiplying for the next couple of days. So figure out what questions you still have and check to see how your skills are doing in that Desmos practice. Thanks.